We all should have been talking about this a long time ago. Yale Lab reports mass killings in Sudan, calls for student activism. The Humanitarian Research Lab was told this week that over 10,000 people in Sudan were killed within 3 days. This article is by Kalina Brookfield and Reem Abdul Kahin. Yale's Humanitarian Research Lab has released evidence showing the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, have begun mass killings following their capture of Al-Fashir in North Darfur, Sudan. The lab's satellite and open source data analysis corroborates reports of killings across civilian neighborhoods, multiple hospital sites, and along the borders of the city of those attempting to flee. Individuals on the ground sent a message that reached us Monday morning that 1,200 were dead. Nathalia Raymond, the lab's executive director, said. By that evening, they said 10,000. By Tuesday, we couldn't reach them anymore. We assume our ground contacts are dead. In July 2023, the lab, which has also conducted research in recent years about Russia's kidnapping of Ukrainian children, began warning of an attack on Al-Fashir. In the 2.5 years since, it has reached the United Nations Security Council 6 times, sent warnings to the U.S. National Security Council, National Intelligence Council, and State Department, and produced over 60 reports on the war in Sudan. This week, the lab released its first report on the mass killings on Monday, describing the presence of RSF performing house-to-house clearance operations in the Daraja Ulan neighborhood. Image analysis shows RSF vehicles, some mounted with guns, blocking side streets, as well as objects the size of human bodies and reddish earth discoloration on the ground near the vehicles. Do you remember that reddish earth discoloration and body-sized objects on the ground that we saw in the CCOT images, the satellite images, before they cleaned them up? I haven't seen violence like this since Rwanda. The velocity and ferocity of the RSF killing civilians since Sunday is unlike anything I've seen in 26 years of doing this work, and HRL has been reporting on the RSF and the Sudanese war for a while, Raymond said. Its second report, released on Tuesday, found evidence of systematic mass killings at a maternity hospital, a former children's hospital turned detention center, and the berm outside of Al-Fashir. The maternity hospital was the city's last operational hospital. From satellite imagery, the report cites lines of dark-colored objects in the children's hospital compound that are consistent with dead human bodies. It also cites videos of RSF soldiers executing civilians within a hospital, taken and posted by the soldiers themselves. IDF soldiers have been doing this whole fucking time. This whole time that we've been watching these G-sides play out, live streamed in 4K for all the world to say. Where is outrage? It took United States citizens seeing starving babies to speak out. It seems interesting because the people of Sudan, the people of Palestine, have one thing in common. They're not white. The ongoing war in Sudan, which broke out in April of 2023, has killed over 150,000 civilians and displaced 14 million people, according to the BBC. The main conflict is between the paramilitary RSF and the Sudanese Armed Forces, or SAF, for control over the country. The RSF, led by General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo and financially backed by the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, of course, grew out of the Janjaweed militia that perpetrated the Darfur Genocide in 2003. The groups that have been rallied to fight are doubtlessly trying to settle scores, and some wish to ethnically cleanse northern Darfur in order to complete the Arab Gathering Project, which seeks to bring Arab groups spread across the Sahel into North Darfur to settle. Alden Young, an associate professor of history and global affairs, wrote in a text to the news. The city of Al-Fashir was the last SAF stronghold in Darfur. It had withstood an 18-month siege before finally falling to the RSF this Sunday, according to a UN report. The Humanitarian Research Lab has worked on documenting the war in Sudan since it began in 2023, including the documentation of the El Janina massacre in June of 2023. That attack saw the killing of between 10,000 and 15,000 civilians. Most belonging to the Masalit tribe in West Darfur, according to the Human Rights Watch report. We are absolutely seeing the same patterns of violence, this systemic, ethnic-based violence. Today in El Fasher, as we saw 2 years ago against the Masalit community in West Darfur, and also 20 years ago in the Darfur Genocide. Kholoud Khair, a peace fellow at the Jackson School of Global Affairs, said, "We just didn't care enough." Raymond condemned the broader international inaction that has allowed the violence to escalate unchecked. He said that governments such as those of the United States and the United Kingdom have prioritized maintaining economic and security relationships with the UAE over the lives of the Sudanese people. Raymond expressed his hopes for President Donald Trump to make an announcement to the RSF and the UAE that the United States has drones over Al Fasher collecting information about war crimes being committed. He emphasized that the United States has not placed sanctions on the UAE. And they probably won't, because Donald Trump is also a war criminal. He is doing everything he can to protect his best buddy war criminal, Netanyahu. So he's trying to delegitimize the International Criminal Court because they might come after him one day, just like his buddy and both of his boyfriends. Sorry, I just don't see any help coming from this government of the United States. He emphasized, the United States has not placed any sanctions on the UAE. The reason that we are where we are is that we just didn't care enough, Raymond said. The survival of these people, their lives, matter less than our economic and security relationships with the UAE, and that's why these people are dying. He noted that despite the rising numbers of atrocities being committed in Sudan over the last 2 years, there's been no major protests on Yale's campus and limited momentum across U.S. campuses. Raymond urged students to mobilize with the same energy that once defined the Save Darfur movement 2 years ago, where activists across the U.S. universities created broad-based bipartisan support through protest. I don't think Yale students know how powerful they are. They're very powerful if they choose to be, Raymond said. The Humanitarian Research Lab is part of the Yale School of Public Health. Now, as if all of this isn't shitty and tragic enough, there are reports that people in the EU have been paid off to not talk about this, to not bring sanctions. The problem is that this was predicted and predictable. Many people knew this would happen. There can't be one head of state or foreign minister who was not warned of this and didn't know that this was a serious likelihood of what would happen here.